Welcome to The Outlet, an NBA podcast hosted by Nick Fay and Kory Waldron.
On this episode of The Outlet, Kory and I are joined by Kyle Russell to recap Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. As always, you can find The Outlet on all streaming platforms. Enjoy the show. All right, guys, Game 4 just wrapped up. Another exciting one in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Heat take this one up 3-1 in the series after picking up the W 112-109. We got our guy Kyle Russell on tonight. Kyle, how you feeling after that win and being up 3-1 in the series over the Celtics?
So the first thing that comes to mind, obviously the Heat look like legitimate finals contenders. And the thing that comes to mind is that people always talk about, you have Bam, you have Butler, but they need somebody else. And the one that seems to have stepped up for that has actually been Tyler Herro. He's playing like a legitimate star, and he is powering this run to the finals. One more game.
Best player tonight.
Absolutely. 37 points. Ridiculous.
I mean, headband return for
Headband Kory.
It's a hot episode. The Miami Heat are, a game away of being back in the NBA Finals for the first time since LeBron James departed. Wasn't sure if I was watching Ray Allen or Tyler Herro out there at points of this game. We even had a Solomon Hill sighting early on, which had Twitter with a lot of jokes, including myself. But that was good to see. I mean, honestly, the Celtics got off to a slow start. I mean, Jason Tatum didn't score in the first half. And then you look at his stat line, you wouldn't have thought he went a half scoreless. I mean, he was huge in the second half, but too little, too late. Obviously, Tyler Herro was good throughout. Jimmy Butler stepped up when you needed him to. I thought he was really aggressive to start this game, too, which was important because he was just so passive in the last game. And then hopefully, that Bam wrist injury isn't too serious, but it was definitely something noticeable for the final, minute and a half of that game.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting that he was still out there. He obviously wanted to stay out there, but it felt like it could be something a little bit more serious. But one thing, when you look at the stats that pops off, 19 turnovers for Boston, only 8 turnovers for Miami. Crucial factor in this game. And offensive rebounding wise, Celtics only won that battle by 2. So getting all those extra possessions for Miami, was huge in this game. But let's talk about Tyler Herro a little bit more. You guys both alluded to the big game, hitting big shots. Didn't matter if it was Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, 37 points, 14-21 from the field, 5-10 from 3, clutch free throws, clutch threes. Kyle, how you feeling about Tyler Herro in Miami now?
So Tyler Herro has just been seems almost like I was out of nowhere in a sense. Because we picked up 14th in the draft. I was like, okay, I heard he's a little bit of a shooter. He has come so far since then, playmaking, defense, and he's just stepped it up in the playoffs. That's been the biggest surprise of it all. I mean, you always think rookies, okay, you go to the playoffs, how are they going to do? He has been an A+ performance in the playoffs, and as a Heat fan, I haven't had anything quite as exciting as Tyler Herro in the sense of a rookie. So I guess that's probably the way to put it if I seem just overly energetic about it.
Not to mention, I mean, we always talk about age when it comes to young players. And this is a guy who won't even be able to drink legally until January of 2021. This is still literally a puppy, a kid, and getting all these reps in the playoffs and being a guy that Spoelstra feels comfortable enough to play in crunch time of a playoff game. Obviously, the way he was going at Marcus Smart, going at these top-level defenders for the Celtics without fear, it's really nice to see. He makes the right pass as well. Like you said, Kyle, it's not just scoring with Tyler Herro. You get a bunch of everything, rebounding, playmaking, a decent defender as well. He's become almost a complete package. And, you look at the third best player on the Miami Heat, it's almost a toss-up between Goran Dragic and Tyler Herro, which I think is kind of crazy, but it almost isn't.
Yeah, I think going to the series, was Goran Dragic in the way he was playing, but Tyler Herro's just really stepped up. And you talk about the playmaking, it really comes down to composure. Having a guy like Marcus Smart hound you, a guy like Jaylen Brown hound you, and not turn the ball over and still able to make the passes that he made tonight, he looked like a veteran out there. For a 20-year-old kid to be making these plays is kind of ridiculous. But who else popped up for you guys on the Heat?
So for me, the big ones that popped up, you kind of talked a little bit about earlier with Butler. I was very impressed him coming out to start because I figured if the Heat were going to win this game, Butler would have had to score 30-plus points. Turned out to be Tyler Herro instead. But Butler came out aggressive, but not necessarily always looking to score. His points were very much in the flow of the offense, and that was something that I enjoyed. He kind of started to pick his spots a little bit in the middle, but you saw him still near come alive in the fourth quarter. He got 7 points there, and he had some clutch free throws. So it feels kind of weird to say like Butler kind of stood out to me when he's a star in Miami, but I was extremely impressed with the way that he bounced back from a subpar game 3.
I'll say someone who stuck out to me was Iguodala. I mean, played 27 minutes. They played that their own version of their own depth lineup, right? They had Iggy playing a little bit of the center position. You look at Iggy's stat line, it wasn't anything special. Obviously, a couple points, couple rebounds, couple assists, but definitely made a presence defensively. Definitely felt his impact out there, and obviously Miami really shortened their rotations this game. We didn't see any Kelly Olynyk, any Kendrick Nunn. Solomon Hill was the one weird rotational player that got a handful of minutes.
Yeah, real quick. You made a really good point on Iggy. So one of the things that happened in this game, if you were going to talk about the disappointment real quick, was Jay Crowder. Crowder regression came and hit hard. So usually Crowder's in the closing lineup. He was not. Iguodala took his place, which kind of goes to show that Spo said, okay, Iggy has the playmaking and the defense really going. Didn't score a lot, but the playmaking defense, especially compared to Crowder not doing anything, that was crucial for Miami closing this game. So, Iggy was a great contributor.
When they had Iggy and Butler at the top when they're running the zone, it was just creating havoc for Boston. They just were forcing so many turnovers between those guys with deflections in their hands, getting steals in there. I felt like that was a big factor. And then also, Spoelstra played zone the entire second half, which is like crazy. I was thinking when Tatum started to heat up, I was like, all right, he's kind of pull away from the zone for a little bit. Nah, he stuck to it, and it paid off for them. And that's the reason they won this game. And it felt like just at different points that Boston just started second-guessing themselves on those three-point shots. So credit to Spoelstra sticking with what he wanted to do out there.
100%. Are we ready to talk about the disappointing Boston Celtics?
Yeah, let's talk Boston. I know Kyle will enjoy this a little.
So, this was a typical. Although Marcus Smart had a double-double in terms of points and assists, this was again a game in which 3 of 12 shooting, too much Marcus Smart offensively. It felt, especially in the second half, kind of forcing some threes, some poor shots. Obviously, there's a couple of times he got good looks because of them. Obviously, the Heat playing his own defense, but it felt like again they got too far away from getting Jaylen Brown involved. Tatum obviously got it going in the second half. The offense in the second half, to me, for the Celtics, just looked really discombobulated. Obviously, you contribute that to the zone. And then in the fourth quarter, it just almost fell apart. Like, I didn't feel Kemba. I didn't feel Jaylen Brown out there. It felt like pretty much Tatum was going one on 5 against the defense.
What do you think about Boston, Kyle?
Yeah, so no, I agree with that. I was looking through some of the stats. Kemba Walker started off very well for them, but to your point, he kind of teetered off. He started scoring 9 of the first 18. So it was a good start, but then, he teetered off. Marcus Smart, 1 of 8 from 3. So kind of like with Jay Crowder, the regression came hard for Smart this game. I really think a lot of what this came down to, though, was just how bad Tatum was in the first.
Yeah.
I mean, he, to your point, incredible second half, but just getting nothing out of him in the first half. That's what helped Miami build and keep a lead for such a long period of time.
What did you guys think about the play of Robert Williams? He obviously got minutes tonight over Enes Kanter.
I mean, there wasn't anything I disliked. A couple of nice offensive rebounds, kept keeping possessions alive. Obviously brings a different motor and different energy, a little bit more tenacious on the boards than that of Daniel Tice. And obviously not a defensive liability as we know Kanter to be. So I didn't dislike any of his minutes. It was also the first game in which Brad Wanamaker wasn't a huge contributor for the Celtics off the bench. They were kind of the last couple games. He had some big performances off the bench. He had a quiet night. Then 16 of the Boston Celtics 19 turnovers came from their starters, and Kemba Walker didn't even have a turnover in this game. So that's obviously the biggest problem, is taking care of the basketball, as we hinted, or alluded to early on in this podcast.
Yeah, especially Jason Tatum, like we talked about, 28 points in the second half, 0 in the first, but those 6 turnovers really stick out. And in the first 2 quarters of the game, he was in some type of funk, offensively, defensively, just not the same, committing dumb fouls, was able to kind of switch that up. Jaylen Brown, 4 turnovers too. For a guy that's not necessarily doing a ton of playmaking, you want to see that get cleaned up. I felt like Gordon Hayward looked almost more rusty in this game than he looked in the previous game.
I would agree. I do recall him saying after the last game, too, that his ankle was really sore afterwards. And, of course, they had multiple games off, so I don't know if that can even be contributed to him looking off. But he also did not look that good tonight as well.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I would say with Hayward, I think it might be more so just, the Heat actually got some film on him and what they plan to do with him. So, especially with how much time they had off, I wouldn't be surprised if it was also a little bit of the adjustment as well. Yeah, when it came to the bench, it looks like they didn't really get too much out of them. I only know Williams mainly just like as the Time Lord meme. But
he had a couple good offensive rebounds. You know, he actually had 0 defensive rebounds. He's a guy that can give you a little bit of energy. I think Wanamaker's minutes are going to continue to go down with Hayward being back. But they just weren't able to kind of get things fully in sync. And there was some hype about the Celtics going with that small 5-man lineup with their 5 best players. And that really wasn't very successful out there. And they even ran that against the zone. And in my head, I was like, well, that's a actually real 5-out lineup you're putting with 4 very good 3-point shooters. And they still weren't able to have success. So just Boston's rhythm and chemistry and just being in sync is not there for them.
No, it's not.
Miami really got up in them. Like you were saying, when you're playing the 2-3 zone, but they got up inside of them, and that's what helped force a lot of the turnovers. The one that comes to me was I think they had 6 or 7 turnovers in the fourth quarter. So it was also just the timing of it was just terrible for them, and that made a huge difference in the end.
Do you guys think Miami's going to run this much zone in Game 5, or do you think Spoelstra's going to go back to a little bit man after he kind of leaned on this so hard in this game?
It ended up winning the game, so I can't see why not. If anything, I would probably expect him to look back on just the few times that they were able to get some attacks in there and just try to come up with counters. But if it won the game, you kind of have to keep sticking with it, and you have to see how Stevens is going to adjust.
I would almost go back to playing man to start off the game again, and then just hit them with the zone again in the second half, because
that's what he's been doing a lot.
Right. It feels like Boston gets into a rhythm playing man, and then as soon as they get into a rhythm, Spoelstra throws the zone at them, and the Celtics, it takes them way too long to figure it out, if they even figure it out.
Yeah. I think so too. I think maybe even throwing in a couple other defensive looks in there. You know, Spoelstra's really creative. You know, Kyle, you mentioned throwing out some counters to what had maybe worked for Boston to confuse them a little bit more. That'd be something to do. On the Brad Stevens side, what are some adjustments he can do for his offense to get things rolling?
I mean,
I think
go ahead, Kyle.
I said when I think it comes to zone, I'm probably honestly expect him. I wouldn't be surprised if he just goes down to just 6. Shorten the rotation down to 6 with just Hayward coming off the bench, and just try to have as many playmakers and shot creators out there on the floor, and just hope to attack the gaps in the zone.
I mean, I think it goes back to what we said before Game 3. Jaylen Brown needs to be aggressive again. I mean, we saw Jaylen Brown kind of take a back seat once again. Obviously, it took way too long for Jason Tatum to get involved and get his offense going, and that's one of the big reasons why they lost this game. But Marcus Smart again. You can't rely on Marcus Smart's jump shot. 1 of 8 from 3, that can't happen. You can't have Marcus Smart taking that many 3-point shots when you're trying to come back and win a series. You need those shots to be allocated to your 3 best players: Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward too, but Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Those 4 guys need priority on shooting deep balls over Marcus Smart, at least for the next game. I mean, mix it up. I think Marcus Smart sometimes gets too ahead of himself in this Boston Celtics offense. I would look to get those key stars going before Marcus Smart starts looking for his own offense.
Yeah, and I feel like if Miami's not in zone, Boston has to do a better job of kind of hunting some of those mismatches. We saw them do that a lot with Duncan Robinson early in the game and try to attack him, get him in foul trouble. But, you know, make Tyler Herro work. He's played solid defense, but he's not an elite defender. He doesn't necessarily have the skill set to be one. Get Jason Tatum some switches on him, let him get going, and try to force Miami to make different moves. And obviously you need to hit your threes if you're going to kind of be able to attack that zone. But also at different points, they had success getting those mid-range shots, be it Jason Tatum, be it Jaylen Brown. So getting back to that and really just having counters in place for what they can do against this Miami zone, which they're obviously going to go back to in the next game. And it feels like they do at different points, but then they get away from it. They get lost in the game and lost in the different moments out there. But any other adjustments you want to see from Boston or Miami going into Game 5?
Maybe throw Tatum or Brown on Tyler Herro. So I think Marcus Smart might be just a little bit too short, even though Marcus Smart is obviously a great defender. But Tyler Herro had no issue with Marcus Smart at any point in tonight's game. And again, maybe that's just a slight adjustment, but it's something I wouldn't mind seeing from Brad Stevens.
Anything from you, Kyle?
Probably started to short the rotation as well, because I would imagine that Stevens is going to short. Like I said, I think Stevens is going to shorten the rotation to 6. This is an elimination game now. You do put all cards on the table. So I'd probably imagine Spoelstra to shorten as well. Maybe go down to 7. Yeah, Solomon Hill got 4 minutes. It may not even be that. So I would just expect both teams to just really go all out because this is a closing game for Miami and an elimination game for Boston.
And like we said, we got to keep an eye on Bam Adebayo, what's going to happen with that hand/wrist, and see if he's healthy. If maybe someone has to come and get some minutes for him. I think maybe at other points in this game, Jimmy Butler could be a little bit more aggressive in terms of scoring because I don't anticipate Tyler Herro having another 37-point game. Didn't anticipate him having one at all in this series, so props to him. But I think Jimmy Butler, when he gets some of those Kemba switches, he really just needs to go to work and attack. Obviously, he did that a couple times tonight, but there was more opportunities out there. And I feel the same way when he gets Daniel Tice switched onto him. Maybe get to the free throw line, get to the rim, kind of work your magic. They're going to probably need Butler to push it up in the scoring department a little bit more when he has those opportunities. But what do you think in Game 5 predictions?
Game 5, that's tough.
The Heat closing it out.
I mean, this series is so close. All these games are so close. They showed a graphic earlier that was like the total points scored. There's a difference of like 2 points. It's ridiculous. But I think Miami has what it takes to close it out. Heat by 2.
I'm going to say the Celtics win the next game and force a Game 6. I just think at least I hope to see some resilience from guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker, the stars of this team, to really come out and be more efficient and be more effective. It did look like the Celtics got to a really slow start. So I'm going to say the Celtics win. Less than 10 points, though, again. It's going to be another slugfest.
Yeah, it's really a toss-up here. Like, part of me feels like Miami's going to close it out, but Boston, again, has so much talent. You expect one of those guys to kind of just pop off in the elimination game, be it Jason Tatum, be it Kemba Walker. So give me Boston a close one, but I think Miami closes it out in 6.
Agreed.
All right, guys. Any other predictions before we get out of here?
No, I'm all good. Just Heat going to the finals. That's the only prediction that matters the most to me.
All right, that wraps it up. Always a pleasure. Big thanks, everybody, for listening, and catch us on all streaming platforms.
Peace out, Knuckleheads.